Welcome to my Burning Crusade Mage pre-raid item guide, looking at everything available outside of heroics and raids, and seeing how vanilla phase 6 items stack up against them. This guide will focus on fire as the main raiding spec for tier 4, but frost is very similarly itemised. Let's start with the essential cap numbers you'll need to know throughout the expansion. In TBC, all percentage-based stats change to rating. At level 70, 1% hit is equal to 12.6 hit rating, 1% crit is equal to 22.1 crit rating, haste is a new stat found mainly in tier 6 raids and onwards, and 1% haste is equal to 10.5 haste rating. All vanilla gear will have its percentage hit and crit chances converted to rating as well, but the rating will only be equal to the old percentage chance when equipped to a level 60 character. As you level up to 70, the amount of hit rating required per percentage increases. For example, Neltharion's tier provides 2% hit in vanilla. This will be converted to 16 hit rating come pre-patch. At level 60, 16 hit rating will still provide 2% hit, but at level 70, 16 hit rating will only provide 1.3% hit. The hit cap has not changed and is still 16%. For fire and frost you get 3% hit from elemental precision. Arcane is discussed in my tier 5 item guide. You will therefore require 13% hit from your gear, which is 164 hit rating. If you have a Draenei in your group, you will only need 152 hit rating, as they provide a 1% hit to all party members. It's a good idea to create an alternate item rack set for this scenario, so you can swap it out depending on your group composition. If you are a Draenei, your hit cap is 152. Throughout pre-raid, tier 4 and tier 5, you will ideally want to use rare quality gems, so Runed Living Ruby, Veiled Noble Topaz, and Glowing Night's Eye, providing that the hit gems are in the game from launch. As in vanilla TBC, they were actually added in patch 2.1, so if this is the case you'll want to use Potent Noble Topaz instead. You'll be stacking Runed Living Ruby in the majority of gem slots, unless a combination of other colour gems would equal or outperform the stat total of the gems, plus the gem bonus. You may also use other colour gems to obtain a plus hit gem bonus for that tiny bit of hit you may need to reach the hit cap, instead of using another piece of hit gear, which would take you way over the cap. Here are the main things to work towards while levelling and pre-raid. Spellstrike and Spellfire sets. You'll be coming out of levelling as Frost, and you can use this spec for initial raids and dungeons, as the mana efficiency and survivability will prove invaluable over Fire when you're under-geared. I suggest working towards Spellstrike first, to use as Frost, and then transitioning into Fire once you're able to craft the Spellfire set. The Spellstrike hood pattern drops from Grand Warlock Nethercurse, the first boss in Shattered Halls, and the pants drop from Murmur, the end boss of Shadowlapse. The Spellfire patterns you can just buy from the Shatrath tailoring vendor. You'll also be working towards arena points for Gladiator's Spellblade or Warstaff, grinding out those 10 games each week to obtain some points, as well as reputations with the Scryers or Aldor, Scryers for the gem and the ring at Revered and Exalted, and if you do decide to go Aldor, there's the staff, which is alright for pre-raid. Cenarian Expedition provides a very nice ring with a good bit of hit on it. Honorhold and Thralmar provide a very nice main hand weapon, Blade of the Archmage or Stormcaller, and you'll need to grind reputation for your heroic keys. Now we'll go through each gear slot and I'll make some recommendations as to some of the items you'll want to pick up. For the head slot, obviously you're going to be going for Spellstrike Hood. This will be a long-term goal. It provides some average stamina and int, a huge chunk of spell power, especially if you socket it with 3 9 spell power gems, providing 73 in total, a really nice amount of hit, 16 being about 1.5%, and a really nice portion of crit, which is just over 1% crit. The next best option is Evoker's Helmet of Second Sight, which is from a long quest chain involving Terran Gorfine in Shadowmoon Valley. Again, a bit of stamina and intellect, a decent portion of spell power, 35. 3 sockets again for 27 spell power with those 9 spell power gems, providing a total of 62 spell power. And then you've got the 24 crit on there, just over 1%. Overall, a really nice helm to get before Spell Strike, and it's a quest, so it should be really easy to get. Until you complete this quest though, you may pick up Enchanter's Cowl from Mechanar, which has a bit more intellect on it, but less spell power in total, with only 1 socket and a meta gem, which you'll want to put the 12 crit and 3% crit damage meta gem into. In total, if you socket a red gem in here, you'll have 38 spell power and 19 crit, so just under 1% crit. A decent option to pick up while completing your Karazhan Attunement questline. Let's also see how Frostfire Circlet stacks up against these 3. So we can see it actually has the most stamina out of the helms, similar int, but only 35 spell power, so it is below Enchanter's Cowl. However, it does have the 8 hit and 28 crit rating, which is just over 1% at level 70. So this could be worth keeping if you're lacking that slight bit of hit to make cap. For necklaces, we have the Brooch of Heightened Potential, which is from Shadowlab's second boss. This is actually on par with the necklaces from Karazhan, so this is a huge item to get, only off the second boss in Shadowlabs, so should be quite easy to get. Bit of stam and int, 22 spell power, 9 hit, and 14 crit, so all around a really good neck piece, and you can get this at level 68 as well. Before that, you can really pretty much keep your old necklaces. So Gem of Trapped Innocence from KT, providing a bit of stam and int, 15 spell power and 28 crit is still alright at level 70. And so is the Amulet of Vecnilash from AQ Twins. The 27 spell power is really holding up very well at level 70, and you get the little bit of crit there as well. For shoulders, this is one of your long-term goals, the Gladiator's Silk Amis from Arena Points. Huge load of stamina, bit of int, decent spell power at 32, with 2 sockets which you can socket for 18 additional spell power, bringing it up to 50 spell power. And then you've got that little bit of crit there as well, 13 crit rating. And this is actually on par with, if not a little bit better than, Tier 4 shoulders, so definitely one to go for. Before that though, there's a very easy pair of shoulders to get called the Spaulders of the Torn Heart, and this is from the Tier 5 Attunement questline in Shadowmoon Valley, the Cipher of Damnation questline. Not quite as much stamina or int, but a huge amount of spell power, 40 spell power, and a decent amount of crit at 18 crit. So you should definitely aim for these as soon as you can. Apart from that, you've got some options through Black Morass on the Karazhan Attunement questline, and when you're grinding rep there, the Mantle of 3 Terrors, 29 stamina, 25 int, so pretty good stats there, 29 spell power, and then this one gives you the hit rating, so it might actually be more beneficial to get this if you're lacking hit. You've also got Spaulders of Oblivion from Shadowlabs, again with a good bit of stamina and int, 29 spell power and 2 gem sockets, so a total of 47 spell power. Let's see how Frostfire shoulder pads stack up against these. Not as much stamina or int, but still a really decent amount of spell power at 36, so you can use these for quite some time. In the back slot, Sethek Oracle Cloak from Sethek Halls is probably the best item you're going to get pre-raid. Good bit of stamina and int, 22 spell power, and a decent 12 hit. Close to that though, if you can pick it up, Cloak of Entropy is a BoE world drop with a little more spell power and 10 hit. Looking at how old cloaks stack up against these, Cloak of the Necropolis from Sapphiron is actually very similar, if not better than the Sethek Oracle Cloak. 12 stam, 11 int, 26 spell power, 8 hit, and 14 crit. So this is actually a really good one to look out for and try and get in your last few Nax runs before release. Also, Cloak of the Devoured from Cthulhu is a very good option as well, still holding up with 30 spell power and 8 hit. For your chest piece, you'll be working towards Spellfire Robe, of course, with that huge 90 spell power once socketed and 28 crit. But before then, a very easy chest piece to pick up is the Alkani Anchorite's Robe from the Alkani Crypts quest outside the instance entrance. It's a super easy quest to do, and you can actually do it while leveling at about level 64 or so. It's big, of course, because it's got those 3 sockets, so socketed with spell power, it comes up to 55 spell power in total and a huge load of 23 hit. There is another option for chest piece if you can pick it up as a BoE world drop, Robe of the Crimson Order, 50 spell power and an even bigger 30 hit. So do look out for this. It's only slightly better than the Alkali Robe though, so it may not be worth picking up in the end. Let's see how Frostfire Robe stacks up against this. So Frostfire is actually the only chest piece with stamina on it, 21. A very decent amount of int, 47 spell power, so still pretty good, and 8 hit, 14 crit, which still holds up, about half a percentage of crit. The spell pen unfortunately doesn't have much of an effect against bosses, but actually still a decent robe, so you can keep this on while working towards the Anchorite's robe, for example. For the wrist slot, Shatrath Wraps from the Shadow Labs quest that you'll naturally pick up outside the instance, a good bit of stamina and int, 21 spell power, socket, so 30 in total, and just a really all-round nice pair of braces. You can work your way towards a slightly better upgrade from that, with General Silk Cuffs through PvP, costing 7.5k honour and 20 Warsong Gulch marks. They've got a really nice amount of stamina, int, 20 spell power and 12 crit, so on a similar level as Shatrath Wraps. And then if you're desperate for hit, you will have to work towards Rampart's heroic reputation, the second boss or more. He drops Crimson Braces of Gloom, which have 22 spell power and 12 hit, which could be very useful for hitting that hit cap. Comparing vanilla items to these braces, Rock Fury does actually hold up quite well, 27 spell power and 8 hit. So you could use this as an alternative to those Crimson Braces and the Shatrath Wraps and the General Silk Cuffs if you're lacking that hit. Additionally, the Braces of Arcane Accuracy are still pretty good, 21 spell power, and you got the 8 hit there as well, so definitely worth keeping these. In the gloves slot, you'll want to work towards your Spellfire gloves, which give a huge 68 spell power and 23 crit. But funnily enough, you can pick up a really nice pair of Mana Spark gloves from the Underbog at level 63, which gives some decent stats, 34 spell power, and usefully 15 hit as well. So I definitely recommend picking these up while leveling. Apart from that, you've got Gloves of Oblivion, which have a huge amount of stam, 33 stam from the end boss of Shattered Halls, 26 spell power and 20 hit. So these are actually huge, but they might be a little bit harder to get. Looking at how level 60 gear stacks up, Darkstorm Gauntlets from Cthulhu, decent stats still, and also very good spell power, 37, but at 70 the hit drops down to 8 hit rating, so not quite as good hit, but they will work for quite a while before you get one of the others. In the waist slot we have quite a few options. Our main goal is obviously Spellfire Belt, with 68 spell power and 18 spell crit, but unfortunately no stamina, so a bit of a glass cannon item. There is Girdle of Ruination, but this is a tailoring world drop, which is going to be very hard to find, so I would not count on making this, and it does cost a lot to make as well. There's also Glyph-lined Sash from Manatomb's Heroic, the last boss, which has 48 spell power, but 9 crit, so nowhere near as good as the Spellfire Belt, but if you do find yourself in Manatomb's Heroic, you might be able to pick this up. Funnily enough, we have another low-level item, Mindfire Waistband from Blood Furnace, which has a huge 39 spell power and 11 crit at level 61 with the 2 gem sockets, so it's actually worth keeping this all the way until 70 if you don't have anything better. There's also Adal's Gift from the Arcatraz key quest line, so you'll pick this up naturally during your attunement process, a decent 34 spell power and 21 crit. And then there's also Sash of Serpentra from Steam Vaults, a decent amount of stamina, 31, as well as 25 spell power and 17 hit. This is the only decent hit belt that's relatively easy to obtain. And then comparing old belts, we've got Eyestalker Waistcord from Cthulhu. This is the one that most people are going to have from level 60, and it still holds up very well, 41 spell power and 14 crit rating at level 70. So you can keep this all the way up until Spellfire Belt actually. And then we come to legs. Spellstrike Pants are the big ones you'll be working towards, and funnily enough this is one of the set items that has a huge amount of hit on it. When socketed with spell power gems, it provides a total of 73 spell power and also 26 crit rating, so a huge item this one. The tailoring pattern drops from Murmur, the last boss of Shadow Labs, so start working towards this as soon as you can. Until then you've got a few options for legs from various different dungeons. We've got Incanter's Trousers from Zethek Halls, which will go through on your attunement runs. Decent amount of stats, 42 spell power and 18 crit, so not too bad there. You've also got Trousers of Oblivion from Sethek Halls as well, the Warlock Dungeon set legs, with a huge amount of stamina, not quite as much spell power, but still decent 39, and instead of crit you get hit rating, so these actually might be more useful to you to reach that hit cap. In Slave Pens we've got Princely Rain Leggings, 33 spell power and 18 hit, so quite useful as well. And then in Black Morass we've got Khadgar's Kilt of Abjuration, which just provides a huge amount of spell power, 63. If you do have decent legs from Naxxramas, the Leggings of Polarity, these do actually stack up quite well, still providing 44 spell power and 28 crit. But my pick out of all of these would probably be Trousers of Oblivion for the hit rating and stamina. There's also Frostfire Leggings from Nax, tier 3 set, still providing a small amount of hit, with 8 hit rating at 70, and a decent amount of stats and spell power, 46 spell power here, so they're not too shabby either. In the boots slot, we have Sigil-laced boots from Arcatraz, 24 stamina, 18 intellect, 38 spell power, and 17 crit. Technically these are the best rated boots that you can get pre-raid, but you do have a few other options which are very nice as well. Shatrath jumpers, which you'll pick up doing the main Shadow Labs questline to kill Murmur, are very nice. Once socketed with 2 rare gems, they provide 47 spell power in total. These are probably the easiest to pick up on your way to 70. Boots of the Nexus Warden are a very nice, surprising green from a Netherstorm quest, only providing 21 spell power, but that huge 18 hit rating would be very helpful if you're just behind the hit cap. At level 64 you have Ethereal Boots of the Skystrider from Manatomb's last boss, the Prince, a decent amount, 26 spell power and 17 crit. Frostfire Sandals from Nax at 60 will stack up just about alright, with 28 spell power and 14 crit, but I reckon most people are going to be taking the Shatrath jumpers, just because it's going to be a quest that you're doing on your way to 70, and Shadow Labs is in the attunement line for Karazhan, and most people will just get the hit from elsewhere. Now we come to rings, and there's a few different options you can go with here. Some of the best ones to eventually go for include Sparking Arcanite Ring, which is from Old Hillsbrad Foothills Heroic, 22 spell power, 10 hit and 14 crit, so good all-round ring, providing some good stats as well. Ashian's Gift from Cenarian Expedition Exalted is a long-term goal, a huge amount of stamina, 30 stamina, 23 spell power and 21 hit, which should help you reach that hit cap quite nicely. We've got the Scryer's Exalted Ring, Seer's Signet, with 34 spell power and 12 crit, a good one to eventually swap out for once you've hit that hit cap. Seal of the Exorcist is available from Turokar Forest with 50 spirit shards from the PvP event with the towers around Alkandun. Not many people think about this one, but it's quite a good ring in all honesty, 28 spell power and 12 hit. Do keep an eye out on the auction house though, as there is Band of the Dominion, which is a BoE world drop, providing 28 spell power and 21 crit. There's a very easy one to get as well, from one of the Shadowmoon Valley questlines, Evoker's Mark of the Redemption. No stamina on this one, but 29 spell power and 10 crit. There's another quest ring from Netherstorm, Manastorm Band, 29 spell power and 10 crit as well. From Arcatraz you have Ringo's Band of Ingenuity, 25 spell power and 14 crit. And then level 60 rings that still hold up well in TBC include Ring of Spell Power all the way back from Molten Core, still providing that decent 33 spell power. The ring from Cthulhu, Ring of the Fallen God, still providing 37 spell power and a small amount of hit, is still very useful, as well as the one from Nax, Band of the Inevitable, 36 spell power and 8 hit. So quite a few different options there. You can start off with the hit rings and then gradually swap them out for the crit rings if you like. And now we're moving on to the big boys, the trinkets. If you've got a fresh character that hasn't been raiding in 60, there's a few useful trinkets to pick up on the way to 70, a couple from easy questlines such as the one in Turokar Forest, the Turokar Tablet of Vim, a nice short questline, and a nice trinket providing 22 hit rating, and an on-use effect for 84 spell power, with a short 1.5 minute cooldown. Not too bad. The one from the Netherstorm questline is Starkiller's Bauble, and very similar 26 hit rating this time, and 125 spell power for 15 seconds with 1.5 minute cooldown. Both very useful trinkets to hit that hit cap initially. You'll also pick up Vengeance of the Illidari in Hellfire Peninsula as one of the first group quests that you'll do, providing 26 crit and a nice on-use effect. But if you have been raiding through Classic, there are several trinkets that you will want to hold on to. Most notably Neltharion's Tear, if you're lucky to pick this up in Blackwing Lair, still providing 44 spell power and a very respectable 16 hit rating. And this still ranks up very high against a lot of TBC trinkets pre-raid. There's also Mind Quickening Gem from Blackwing Lair, which has an on-use effect of 330 haste rating, which equals about 21% increased casting speed at level 70 for 20 seconds. And this still might be quite useful on some very short fights. It might still be used in tier 5 once you go arcane. But specially from Kel'Thuzad we have Mark of the Champion, providing 85 spell power against undead and demons. Now this is a huge trinket for the whole duration of TBC, because in actual fact most of the raids that you'll be going through you'll be fighting against undead and demons. The only real exception is most of the tier 5 raids, SSC and TK, but apart from that, I mean, you've got Karazhan, you've got Magtheridon in tier 4, tier 6 you've got a large portion of Hyjal and a large portion of Black Temple, and then throughout Sunwell you've got a load of demons in there as well. So this will work for a lot of bosses and a lot of trash throughout the expansion, so it's definitely worth picking it up at the moment if you can. Highly recommended. We have the Scryer's Blood Gem, a TBC classic of course, and you can pick this up at Revered with Scryers, and everyone wants this for the huge hit rating it provides, 32, and the on-use effect for 150 spell power with a 1 minute 30 cooldown, and this will help you with a large portion of getting your hit cap. A couple of other trinkets which you might be able to pick up pre-raid once you're hit capped are Shifar's Nexus Horn from Arctraz Last Boss, providing 30 crit rating and a nice on-hit effect to increase your spell power by 225 for 10 seconds, so pretty good for snapshotting. And Quagmoran's Eye from Slave Pen's Heroic, which provides a decent 37 flat spell power and a nice chance to increase your haste rating by 320 for 6 seconds. Out of all of these, I'd be going for Scryer's Blood Gem and Mark of the Champion ideally. As a long-term goal, you've got Icon of the Silver Crescent, which is 41 badges from the Heroic Gear vendor in Shattrath, which provides a really nice baseline 43 spell power and a big on-use effect of 155. Personally, I'd recommend picking up as many of these trinkets as you can, because using them will depend on each boss fight, depending on the time of the boss fight, or the phases and which portion of the fight you'll be DPSing or not, or moving, so we could see a use for any of these trinkets really, so definitely worth picking up as many as you can. Nearing the end now, looking at weapons, I'll look at two-hand weapons first. We've got a potential long-term goal of Gladiator's Warstaff, providing a huge 48 stamina, 35 int, 199 spell power, 21 hit, 36 crit, and 25 resilience. Moving down from this you've got Alkanai's Staff, which comes from the Aldor rep at Revered. No stamina but a load of intellect at 46, only 121 spell power, but still a decent amount of hit at 19, decent crit at 26. A nice easy one to pick up on your way. You may also come across the Warp Staff of Arcanum from Botanica during your attunement questline. Decent stamina and intellect, again only 121 spell power, but decent hit at 16 and 26 crit. Seeing how level 60 staves stack up against these, you've got Soul Seeker from Kel'Thuzad, which is the big one. Still decent stats on there with 126 spell power, unfortunately no hit, but you do get 28 crit. The spell pen doesn't unfortunately work against bosses, but still a decent staff to be using even at 70. And then we can take a look at the one-hand and off-hand weapons, which generally give you less stamina and int, but more spell power and other stats. You've got a few long-term goals like Gladiator's Spellblade, this one providing the same amount of spell power, 199 on a one-hand, as well as a small amount of other stats. There's the Blacksmithing Dagger, Eternium Runed Blade, no stamina on here, but 168 spell power and 21 crit. There's the Blade of the Archmage, or Stormcaller, for Honor Hold and Thralmar respectively, found at Exalted Reputation. These have 159 spell power and 21 crit. On the auction house you might find Blade of Wizardry, going for quite a bit of gold, 159 spell power and a chance to increase your haste rating by 280 for 6 seconds. We might find this is quite a good weapon, but of course it's going to be hugely expensive, so don't expect to get your hands on this. One of the more attainable weapons on your way to 70 is Greatsword of Horrid Dreams. Now this drops from Shadow Labs, last boss Murmur, and it's got some decent stats on here, 130 spell power and 14 hit rating, so it'll work towards getting your initial hit cap, and you might find this during your attunement path, or if you're helping others attune. Definitely recommend picking this up if you can. Another one that some people might forget about is the Grand Marshal's Spellblade. Specifically the level 70 blue one that's part of the initial PvP set that you might grind out. This will be available for 22.5k honour and 20 AB marks, and it's got some decent stats on here, 121 spell power and 13 hit, so again similar to the Greatsword, helping you reach that hit cap. Then we've also got Runeson Dagger from the Shattered Halls with 121 spell power and 20 crit rating this time. There's Continuum Blade from Keepers of Time Rep at Revered. I believe this is one that prop pannies will pick up as well, as it's got a decent amount of stamina on there as well as the hit, which might help you as well. And just as a comparison, unfortunately looking back at Wraithblade at level 60, it doesn't really stack up that well against TBC weapons, only providing 95 spell power, 8 hit and 14 crit. So as much as you wanted this item at level 60, it's quite easy to replace in TBC, so don't get too attached to it. For the offhand slot, we've got some long-term goals that you can work towards, bought with 25 Badges of Justice. For fire, which is probably the initial raiding spec you're going to go, we've got Flame Tongue Seal. This is kind of like an upgraded AV offhand. 49 fire damage and 17 spell crit. There's also the arcane version, Talisman of Kalakgos, which is 50 arcane damage and 14 intellect. You could pick up Khadgar's Knapsack, which just provides a flat 49 spell power, but I expect most people to be moving towards Flame Tongue Seal initially. Some easy pickups along the way include Lamp of Peaceful Radiance from Arcatraz, providing a very nice bit of hit with 12 hit, 13 crit, 21 spell power, and some stats. There's also Starheart Lamp, which is quite similar from Black Morass. No crit on here, but you do get the 22 spell power and 12 hit. And then some useful offhands from level 60 that you might still have are of course the Tome of Fiery Arcana from AV, still providing 40 fire damage, which is respectable even at 70, as well as Sapphiron's Left Eye from Nax, 26 spell power, 8 hit and 14 crit, and even the Royal Scepter of Veclore from AQ, 20 spell power, 8 hit and 14 crit. So comparably they're actually pretty similar to the ones you pick up in TBC dungeons, so you could start working towards these now before TBC release if you need to. Putting the one-hand and off-hand weapons together, you can generally see that they'll give you more spell power in total than a two-hand staff, but they're not too far away from each other. Most people will be working towards that Gladiator's Spellblade for Phase 1, unless they can pick up one of the nice epics from Karazhan or Gruul's Lair. The pick of the bunch for me would be the Greatsword of Horrid Dreams from Shadow Labs, a really nice upgrade from Wraithblade, which will help you hit the hit cap pre-raid. I'd probably try and pair this with one of the level 60 offhands like Sapphiron's Left Eye, but if I can't get that, I'd probably try and get Lamp of Peaceful Radiance or Starheart Lamp to go with it. Last but not least, we have the Wand slot, and your long-term goal here will be working towards the Black Stalk for pre-raid. This is from Heroic Underbog, so you might pick this up before going raiding, and this provides 20 spell power and 11 crit rating and a little bit of stamina. Doomfinger from Naxxramas at level 60 does stack up against this quite well, providing 16 spell power and 14 crit rating, so if you can pick this up in Classic, then do so. Along the way to 70, we've got Nethercore's Control Rod from Arcatraz, some basic stats on here as well as 13 spell power and 8 hit. And there's also Voidfire Wand from Mana Tombs, again some stats, 11 spell power and 7 hit. So both of these might be worth picking up anyway if you can, even if you've got Doomfinger, just so you can use them for that last bit of hit that you might need. For enchants, looking at the head slot, you can save a ZG enchant Presence of Sight, which will still provide 18 spell power, but now only provides 8 hit rating. So you could put this on a head slot item until you reach Revered with the Shatar to eventually get the best in slot, the Glyph of Power, providing 22 spell power and 14 hit rating. For shoulders, ideally you'll be looking at either the Aldor or Scryer's shoulder enchant. The Aldor one is slightly better for mages, providing 15 spell power at Honoured and 18 spell power and 10 crit at Exalted. The Scryer's one provides 13 crit rating at Honoured and 12 spell power and 15 crit rating at Exalted. But if you're going into raids before then, or you just want to enchant your shoulders, you should be able to still use the ZG Signet of Mojo, which should still provide 18 spell power, and this is probably quite a cheap option to pick up at the moment. For cloak, you'll probably want to go with subtlety if you have an enchanter in a guild with that. For chest, you want to work towards exceptional stats, giving you +6 to all stats, although this formula is only available at Exalted with Honour Hold or Thralmar, so it might be quite a while until this becomes available. Otherwise you can go with the old Bis enchant +4 all stats. On the bracers, the Bis enchant will be spell power +15, but this formula drops from Bloodmaul Geomancers in Blades Edge Mountains, so it might not be initially available. Otherwise you've got Major Intellect, which provides +12 int, which is learnt at 305 enchanting from the trainer. On gloves, there isn't much difference actually going into TBC. This time you get +20 spell power to all spells, rather than having to choose a particular school of magic to improve. So if you want to, you can pick this up. The enchant is available at Honoured with Keepers of Time, however, so it might not be initially available. It might be worth stocking materials for 20 frost damage or 20 fire damage on gloves from Classic. For legs, you've got the ZG enchant Presence of Sight, again providing 18 spell power and 8 hit rating at level 70. Hopefully this will still be working, but otherwise you'll be looking to tailors to provide you with either Mystic Spell Thread, 25 spell power, 15 stamina at Honoured with Scryers, or eventually Runic Spell Thread, which provides 35 spell power and 20 stamina at Exalted. On boots you'll want Boar's Speed, which provides 9 stamina and the movement speed bonus, but this is a world drop enchant, so you might just want to go for Fortitude +12 stamina, this drops from Mana Tombs, or otherwise just the regular minor speed enchant from Classic. On rings, if you're min-maxing, you'll want to take enchanting all the way up to 360, and then you get access to the ring enchant giving you +12 spell power on each ring, for a total of 24. A pretty good enchant overall, and if you are in one of those hardcore guilds you might be required to do this. On weapon for tier 4 raiding, if you're going towards fire, you want to look at Sunfire enchant, but this does drop from Shade of Aran in Karazhan, so it might be a while until this becomes available to you. Sunfire provides 50 damage to fire and arcane spells. If your raiding is frost, you'll want Soul Frost, which similarly drops from Karazhan from Terrestrian Ilhoof and provides 50 damage to frost and shadow spells. Down from that you've got Major Spell Power, which is a new one for TBC, giving +40 to all spell schools, but this does drop from Bash-Ear Arcanists and Spell Thieves in Blades Edge Mountains, so it might not be available to you initially. Otherwise you've got the old Classic enchant Spell Power, giving you +30, which you can stack up mats for. Consumables you'll want to bring to raid include food buffs. There's quite a few food buffs available, all providing the ideal stats that you want to have, which is +23 spell power and 20 spirit. And this is available from various sources, including Blackened Basilisk at 315 cooking, Poached Bluefish at 320, and Crunchy Serpent at 335. For certain fights or progression runs you may need maximum health, and for that you're looking at taking Spicy Crawdad, which you can learn at 350 cooking, or Fisherman's Feast, also at 350, and these provide 30 stamina buff and 20 spirit. But these are made from uncommon fish found in Outland, so it might be a bit rarer and therefore more expensive. For potions, you've got an upgraded mana potion, Super Mana Pot, which is learnt from a vendor, restoring 1,800 to 3,000 mana. Or alternatively, on that cooldown you could use Destruction Potion, which is a world drop recipe, providing 120 spell power and 2% crit for 15 seconds. So this is a massive DPS boost that you'll probably want to stack with other cooldowns. In the Healthstone timer slot, you've got an upgraded Mana Gem, Mana Emerald, now providing around 2,400 mana. There's the new Healthstone providing around 2,000 health. And there's also a rare consumable that you can pick up around Zangarmarsh, providing 80 spell power for 1 minute. So another huge DPS increase that you'll want to stack with other cooldowns. However, this might be super rare, depending on how available it is in the world and how many people want it. For flasks, there's a few new flasks. We've got Flask of Pure Death, which provides 80 fire and frost damage. And then later in Tier 5 you'll want to go with Flask of Blinding Light for arcane damage. But the original Flask of Supreme Power from Classic still gives you 70 spell power to all schools, so you can stock up on these before TBC release, and you shouldn't be too far behind. And that's probably a good idea to do for your initial Tier 4 raids. And then lastly, Weapon Oil. There is a new wizard oil called Superior Wizard Oil, learnt at 340 enchanting from a vendor, and this provides 42 spell power for 1 hour. So you can see the wizard oils have been upgraded from 30 minutes to 1 hour, but the new one isn't actually as good as the old one, Brilliant Wizard Oil, which provides 36 spell power and 14 crit rating. So actually, depending on your stat equivalency points, the old one might work out as more DPS for you. So probably worth stacking these up before TBC release, as you'll be using them throughout the expansion. So there we have it, an overall look at some of the items you'll be looking at getting pre-raid when TBC launches. And as you can see, some level 60 items still stack up quite well against level 70 stuff, so I'd recommend looking now during your final few raids as to what items you can pick up that will help you even at level 70. I hope this has been helpful in planning out your gear on your journey to Tier 4 raiding. Thanks for watching and have a good day.